Joining us now, Christopher Green, law professor at Ole Miss. Professor, good to see you again, sir. We are back at it with more decisions being handed down from the Supreme Court since we last spoke. That was last Thursday, a week ago. They had just handed down their ruling on affirmative action in college admissions, opining that, in the majority at least, that that's not legal. And so on the heels of that, then we had these other rulings concerning Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness plan and then a couple of religious freedom cases. But it's been a busy term, to say the least.
Oh, yeah, no question. It's always, I mean, the end of June is always exciting. This is a little more exciting. But, yeah, with both, I mean, with the student loan thing and the affirmative action decision, it's really hard to know exactly what the implications are, because in both areas, really the next step would be, kind of a temporary version of something that we'd seen in a bigger form before. So the Supreme Court says, oh, you can't have this kind of indefinite affirmative action just for the end of time. Well, they could say, and I don't know. I mean, our law school, different places, different universities may say, we're going to adopt, just a policy for the next year. Similarly, with the student loan, for completely forgiving all of the principal and the interest and everything. That might be beyond this emergency power in the statute from 2003. But the president could say, well, we're just not going to make them resume payments right away, and then just have these. I think in game theory they call this salami tactics. So just giving little bit at a time, and in lieu of a real clear statute, in terms of the student loan thing, in lieu of a statute saying, no, emergency means, something, only for a limited time frame, or something like that. Just the discretion that the administrative state has. I think things like that are going to be, when you write statutes like that, it invites presidential behavior like that.
Yeah. So. Of course, immediately the White House resorted to, I guess, Plan B, as I would call it, since the Supreme Court comes out and says, well, no, you just can't issue an order to the Department of Education to forgive loans of $10,000 based on your income, but $10,000 up to $20,000 if you also received a Pell Grant. Just wiped off the principle. But in the meantime, the White House comes out and says, well, we're going to try a new approach based on the Higher Education Act of 1965, which, again, I guess, grants some powers to the Department of Ed to waive, modify, amend the terms of a loan. Isn't this sort of circumventing, if you will, subverting what the Supreme Court just ordered?
Well, I mean, I always tell my students, I say, anytime you hear somebody say, "Oh, you're doing an end run around what they were doing, you're circumventing what we just told you," you always say an end run is a legal play. So one man's circumvention is another man's compliance.
Okay.
So if you say, "Oh, well, you said we can't do that, we're going to try something else because you told us we couldn't do A, that's why we're doing B." And the Supreme Court can't, it isn't going to come back and say, oh, come on, you're supposed to respect the vibe of the thing. You're supposed to, just kind of see what we're up to, because this is an activity with very particular language, particular text, and if there's different text, from 1965, what the court could do to really shut things down like this would be to come up with a much more muscular view of things that just can't be given to the executive. So if you think about emergencies, Congress meets once a year. They're constitutionally obligated to meet at least once a year. Anything that's been around for a year could have been done by Congress. So So the court in the student loan opinion said, Congress leaders in Congress said we can't, the administration can't do this. If you want to get a student relief, you got to vote for our party and send people to Congress. And this was used as a campaign argument, and Congress didn't get enough people to do it. And then suddenly turning around saying the administration can do it. It's just, in certain respects, there could be aspects of COVID that could still be an emergency now, like sudden new details about details of COVID that suddenly come out. But I mean, the general notion that you've got a pandemic, my goodness, we've had several sessions of Congress come and go. If they had wanted to say, in light of all this stuff going on, we want to do debt relief, we could do that. So James Madison, he said. 1800, he said, look, if something could have been a statute, this is more or less his view, and this is quite a muscular view. I said, look, if Congress could have done this, Congress has to do it if they want it to happen. They can't just punt things to the feds, to the administrators, the president and his people. And if we did that, then anything longer than a year couldn't be an emergency. But the Supreme Court is miles away from that kind of radical view. But until you really say something about what Congress has to do, exactly what Congress has to do and can't delegate to the executive, you're gonna cause administrators to hunt around looking for other statutes that there's always a little bit of discretionary room about the details, but saying. This thing ends up 70 years later turning into a massive authority to do all kinds of unexpected things. That's what's going to happen unless you have a non-delegation doctrine.
We were just talking about that, Professor, that now the Biden administration is working. Of course, the Biden administration includes the Department of Education. So the Department of Education is working to modify the payment terms, essentially, of the existing student loans, which accomplishes the same thing as just one fell swoop, wipe out $10,000 of principal or $20,000, but maybe over an extended period of time by changing the payment structure, the income-driven repayment structure is what it's called. And so they're going to change that and then change the interest rate provision, the feature as well, and the interest calculation provision, so that essentially you just push more principal out for many of these borrowers to the end of the 20-year term, where under present law, all remaining principal on the debt is just wiped out, forgiven, written off.
Really, you don't know what the incentives are going to be. Somebody's got a bunch of student loans that they thought might get disappeared by the earlier Biden program, but now you're like, oh well, maybe it'll just get delayed. I mean, you do hope that some of these folks will think, I really do need to go out and get a job that's higher paying. Take some of these jobs, not just. I love grad school. I love people going to professional school. We get lots and lots more law students when people are doing that. But we really do want people to be going to the productive part of the economy and building things that they can sell for money and repay loans. And so the uncertainty may produce different incentives. Of course, if you get a different president, things could change in a few years when it's just not set in stone with a statute. So I mean, Congress has got to do its job if you're gonna stop this kind of thing. But it's when you have really close very tight majorities in Congress, it's really tough to, even if you've got almost all the people wanting to do their job one way or another. It can be a dynamic thing to be difficult. And it's a bicameral system. So you got to, even if you solve the problem in the House, you got the whole set of same stuff in the Senate. And it's, it's slow. So it produces problems more slowly and it fixes problems more slowly. But this is Federalist 51. This is ambition counteracting ambition. And you go to D.C. like, oh my goodness, we got a whole bunch of ambition counteracting ambition. It prevents.
That's a good way to put it.
From getting things done.
Yeah. Well, We appreciate you joining us today. It's great insight. And as always, Professor, it's been a pleasure, sir. Thanks.
Good to see you. Take care.
You got it. We're coming right back with more in the Element Wealth studio.